I am Ryan Carter, and it was supposed to be an easy Saturday afternoon at a friend's place. A regular suburban hangout with the same familiar group. The kind of day when you stop thinking about work and just enjoy good food and better company. That peace did not last. "Stop acting like we are married," my wife, Emily, said. Her voice sliced through the chatter. "You do not get to tell me where I go or who I am with." Every head turned toward us. Mike paused with the spatula midair. Conversations went quiet. Even the neighbor's dog, a loud mutt named Buddy, hushed for once. Emily stood with her hands on her hips, face hot with anger, aiming it at me like I was some stranger who had crossed her line. All this because I had asked a simple question. She had mentioned leaving for the whole weekend. I had asked where she planned to go. Silence stretched long. Then I heard one short laugh. Then another. Soon half the yard was trying to hide their smirks behind their cups and cans. It felt like a cheap show for people who wanted to watch a man get dressed down by his own wife. I took a slow drink and felt eyes all over me. People were waiting to see if I would crack, argue, or walk away like a whipped dog. The safe bet, based on my history, would have been for me to apologize for something I did not do and pretend nothing was wrong. But something shifted in me. It was calm. It was cold. It was clear. I smiled. Not the forced smile people wear to play off embarrassment. A real smile. Almost amused. It confused the crowd. "You are absolutely right," I said, loud enough for anyone to hear. "We are not married." The laughter died. Everyone froze. Emily looked stunned, like she had not planned for that answer. I turned to Mike and raised my beer in a small toast. "Thanks for hosting. The food smells great. I am going to head out." I looked back at Emily and kept that steady smile. "Enjoy your weekend away. Take all the time you need to think." The walk to my car felt like the longest and the shortest walk of my life. I heard quick whispers start up behind me, but I did not turn around. I got in, started the engine, and drove home. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my phone was buzzing. A few texts came from friends at the party, asking if I was all right. Others came from Emily, full of questions about what I meant. I ignored them. I sat in the quiet car with the engine off and stared at the house we had shared for 3 years. Lately, I had felt like a guest inside my own walls. Every talk had turned into a power fight. Every suggestion I made was treated like I was attacking her freedom. She wanted to act single. She wanted to tell people we were not really married. Fine. I took out my phone and made a call. The locksmith said he could come on Monday morning, right after she left for her weekend of thinking. When she came back, she would find out what being single actually meant. The irony made me shake my head. For months she had been pushing, testing, seeing how much disrespect I would accept. When I tried to bring it up, she flipped it on me and made me the villain for asking for basic courtesy from my own wife. She finally pushed too far, and she did it in front of everyone we knew. I stepped into the house and pictured her face when her key would not turn. I saw her clothes and her things, packed neat and set out by the front lawn. I could hear the neighbors explaining why her ex-husband had given her exactly what she asked for. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Emily with more question marks and capital letters. I powered the phone down and went to the kitchen for another beer. I had a busy weekend ahead. Calls to make. Arrangements to handle. A clear message to send. She wanted to be single so badly that she shouted it to a backyard full of people. On Monday morning, she would learn that sometimes you really do get exactly what you ask for. Monday came like clockwork. Emily rolled out at 6 o'clock in the morning, dragging a huge suitcase and saying she needed space to evaluate our relationship. The moment her car turned the corner, I dialed the locksmith. "Can you be here by 8 o'clock? I asked. "Sure thing," he said. "Standard lock change. Every one. Front door, back door, and the garage." By 7:45 on Monday morning, I was in the driveway with a fresh cup of Dunkin' coffee when the locksmith's van rolled up. The technician was a middle-aged man with calloused hands and a no-nonsense way about him. He gave me a quick nod, like he had seen this exact scene 100 times. "Wife problems?" he asked, grabbing his toolbox. "Ex-wife problems," I said. He gave a knowing grin that told me this was not his first rodeo. While he started on the locks, I moved to phase 2. 3 years of marriage had filled closets and shelves, and I was not going to toss her things into trash bags like some angry teenager. This needed to be careful, organized, and beyond dispute. I drove to Home Depot and bought 20 moving boxes, packing tape, and bubble wrap. If Emily later claimed I was being unreasonable, She would have to explain why her clothes were folded, her framed pictures were wrapped, and everything was grouped by category. As I loaded the cart, the irony hit me. 3 months ago, when I suggested we talk about how we communicate, she laughed and said I was being dramatic. When I asked for basic boundaries about respect, she accused me of trying to control her. But standing in a backyard full of friends and announcing that we were not really married, apparently that was simply her being honest about her feelings. Back at the house, the locksmith finished the front door. New deadbolt, new handle, new keys she had never touched. He handed me a small ring of keys and gave a satisfied grunt. "These are solid," he said. "Military grade. No one is getting in without your say-so." I paid in cash and added a generous tip. "I appreciate the quick work," I told him. "Anytime," he said. "I hope things work out for you." When his van pulled away, I stood on the porch and looked at the place with fresh eyes. For the first time in months, it felt like mine. No more walking on eggshells. No more second-guessing simple choices. No more living like a roommate who annoyed the actual tenant. Phase 3 was the call I had put off for weeks. A colleague, who went through a rough split last year, had recommended a divorce attorney. The consultation fee was steep, but the man's reputation for quiet, efficient results was worth every dollar. "I need to file," I said when he picked up. "My wife made it very clear, in front of witnesses, that she does not consider us married. I am taking her at her word." "How clear are we talking?" he asked. "Clear enough that multiple people heard her say we are not married and that I do not get a say in her life decisions." "That is what we call an admission against interest," he said, with a small chuckle. "Can you come in this afternoon?" "That works. Bring anything you have. Financial records, the marriage certificate, proof of any separate property. If you have text messages or emails showing that attitude, bring those too." Oh, I had messages. Months of them. Screenshots where she said marriage was just a piece of paper and that her independence mattered more than any commitment we made. I spent the afternoon at his office, laying everything out. He took notes, asked sharp questions, and nodded when he read the screenshots. "She has made this remarkably simple," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Usually we spend months sorting out," he said, she said. "When someone repeats, in writing and in front of witnesses, that vows do not bind them, it changes the landscape." "How soon can you have the papers ready?" I asked. "I can draft by Wednesday, file on Thursday, and have service done by Friday." "Perfect," I said. She would return from her weekend of reflection just in time to discover what reflection really looked like. That evening, I sat in my newly secured house with takeout from Chipotle and mapped the final phase. Tuesday would be for packing. Her clothes, her shoes, her makeup, her books, everything that was clearly hers. I would be methodical, fair, and reasonable. For months, she told me, I did not understand marriage, that I was too controlling for expecting basic respect, that her freedom came first. Tomorrow, she would begin to see what that freedom actually meant. My phone stayed quiet all night. No apology. No second thoughts about her trip. Just blessed calm in a house that finally felt peaceful. I opened a Corona, sat on the back deck, and watched the sky go orange. For the first time in months, I was not bracing for her mood when she walked in. I was not calculating which topics might set off another lecture about independence. She wanted to act single. Mission accomplished. Tuesday morning came with the kind of focus you only get when you have a clear job to do. Coffee tasted better. The shower felt cleaner. Even the morning news seemed less heavy. Today was execution day. I started with her closet. 3 years of designer clothes. Shoes that cost more than most people's car payments. Enough makeup to stock a small beauty store. I packed it all with the care of a checklist. Clothes folded the right way. Shoes wrapped in tissue paper. Jewelry secured in padded trays. If anyone questioned my choices later, they would have to admit I treated her belongings with more respect than she treated our marriage. I boxed up her stack of self-help titles and shook my head at the irony. How to get what you want in life. Setting boundaries with toxic people. The art of not caring what others think. It seemed like she had been training for this day a lot longer than I realized. By noon, I had 15 boxes lined up in the living room. Each one had a clear label written with a black marker. Clothes, shoes, books, personal items. No angry notes. No petty digs. Just neat, professional order that left no room for criticism. Phase 2 meant a run to Target for a large blue tarp. The forecast showed clear skies through Friday, but I wanted no risk to her electronics. The last thing I needed was an argument about water damage to her laptop. I spread the tarp across the front lawn like I was setting up a very organized yard sale. Then I carried out each box and set them where they could be seen from the street, while still covered from any surprise weather. Her yoga mat went on top of one stack. The throw pillows she insisted on buying for the couch went on another. The neighbors noticed. Mrs. Patricia Patterson across the street stood at her window for a long time, taking everything in. 2 houses down, the retired gentleman who always walked his dog slowed to half his usual pace. Good. The more witnesses, the better. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I knocked on Mrs. Patterson's door. She opened it with the look of someone who had been waiting for this exact knock. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Patterson," I said. "I want you to know my wife is moving out. If she stops by and asks questions when she gets back from her trip, please tell her that her ex-husband said she wanted to be single." Her eyes widened. "Oh my, are you sure about this, dear?" "She said it clearly at the barbecue on Saturday," I said. "She said we are not really married. I am making sure her living situation matches her relationship status." Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly, the kind of nod that told me she had heard most of the story already. "Well, if that is what she wants." "Exactly what she wants," I said. "Have a good day." Next, I handled social media. I did not enjoy it, but it had to be done. I changed my relationship status to single. I swapped my profile photo for one without her. Then I blocked her on every platform I used, including Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. I set my phone to silent and put it face down on the table. The notifications started climbing almost right away. Friends from the barbecue had a sudden interest in my updates. I assumed her friends were calling her with their own opinions. The attorney called at 4 o'clock with an update. "The papers are ready for your review. Can you come by before 5 o'clock? "I am on my way," I said. His office felt different that second time. Less like a consultation, more like a strategy room. The divorce petition was thick, official, and final. 2 signatures and a filing fee would turn her weekend of reflection into a permanent change. One note, the attorney said as I signed. "She is going to be angry. She may threaten to take everything. Do not engage. Do not argue. Refer her to me." "What can she realistically get?" I asked. "Not much," he said. "You have documented her repeated statements about not considering herself married. She has shown a pattern of refusing marital obligations. Also, most of your assets are separate property from before the marriage." I signed the last page with steady hands. "When will she be served?" "Friday afternoon," he said. "A professional process server. Legal and fully documented." Driving home, I felt lighter than I had in months. The house looked strange with boxes on the lawn, but it looked honest. No more pretending things were fine. No more accepting disrespect to keep a fake peace. That evening, I lit the grill on the back deck and cooked a steak. I opened a Samuel Adams and took a long drink. It was the first beer I had enjoyed in a long time without dreading what argument might be waiting when she walked in the door. It was the first dinner without measuring every topic for fear of another lecture about her independence. My phone showed 47 notifications. I ignored them. Tomorrow would be Wednesday. She would return on Friday evening, expecting a contrite husband who would apologize for daring to question her authority. Instead, she would learn what happens when someone mistakes a strong man's patience for weakness. I raised my beer toward the front yard where her things sat tidy under the streetlight. "You wanted to be single," I said to the quiet air. "Congratulations." Friday evening arrived with the precision of a Swiss watch. I sat on the front porch with a cold Miller Lite, watching the street like I was waiting for a package. In a way, I was. Her silver Honda Civic turned the corner at exactly 6:47 in the evening, right as the streetlights blinked awake. She had always been punctual when it came to her own schedule. Through the windshield, I saw her glance down at her phone, probably catching up on the dozen messages she had fired off over the last 3 days and never got answers to. The car crawled toward the driveway, then stopped hard. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the moment it clicked. Her mouth opened. She leaned into the steering wheel and stared at the neat rows of boxes lined across the front lawn like the most organized estate sale in town. She idled for a full minute, engine humming, trying to make sense of it. Then the door slammed. She came up the walk with that determined stride I had learned to recognize as incoming trouble. "What is this supposed to be?" she shouted, throwing her arms toward the boxes. "Why is my stuff on the lawn?" I took another drink and stayed on the top step. Your things are right where they belong, I said. On the grass of the person who insisted she wants to be single. She stabbed her key at the front door and twisted. Nothing. She tried again, faster, then harder. My key does not work. Did you change the locks? Why would your key work? I asked. You do not live here anymore. Color drained from her cheeks as the truth settled in. You cannot just kick me out. This is my house too. I stood up, slow and steady. This house belongs to someone who believes in marriage. You made it plain you are not that person. Before she could answer, Mrs. Patricia Patterson drifted over from across the street like she had rehearsed this moment, which, knowing her, she probably had. Excuse me, dear, Mrs. Patterson called in her gentle voice. Are you looking for your husband? Yes, Emily snapped. He has lost his mind and locked me out of my own house. Mrs. Patterson offered a sympathetic smile, the kind people use when explaining something obvious. Oh, honey, your ex-husband told me you wanted to be single. He said you made that very clear to everyone at the barbecue last Saturday. The words hit Emily like a shove to the chest. She spun toward me, her face flashing confusion, anger, and the first thin line of panic. Ex-husband? We are not getting divorced. This is ridiculous. I reached into my shirt pocket and pulled out a folded document. The process server came by this afternoon, I said. He left this for you. Her hands trembled as she opened the divorce papers. She skimmed the first page, then the second, her expression collapsing line by line. You filed for divorce without even talking to me, she said. I did talk to you, I replied. You told me to stop acting like we are married. You said I do not get a say in your life. I took your advice. That is not what I meant. That is exactly what you meant, I said. And you said it in front of at least 15 people. She looked around, searching for help. Mrs. Patterson stood in her driveway with her arms folded, watching like it was her favorite show. 2 more neighbors had stepped onto their porches, eyes fixed on the scene. You cannot do this, Emily said, her voice cracking. This is insane. I was upset about something small. People say things they do not mean when they are angry. I finished my beer and set the empty bottle on the rail. You were not angry on Saturday. You were making a point, loud, clear, and public, about what our marriage means to you. But I love you, she said. The words hung between us like smoke from a campfire. 3 days earlier, they might have mattered. 3 days earlier, I might have been desperate enough to believe them. Now they sounded hollow. Love. I let out a hard laugh. You love having someone to blame for the parts of life you do not like. You love having a roommate you can scold when he steps out of line. That is not love. Her approach shifted. She came closer, eyes shining. Please, can we go inside and talk this out? Like adults? Adults do not humiliate their spouse in public, I said. Adults do not announce to a crowd that the marriage does not count. Adults do not ignore calls and texts for 3 straight days. I needed space to think. Congratulations, I said. You have all the space you could ever want. She looked from me to the boxes spread across the lawn, back to me again. The confident woman who dismissed our vows in front of friends was gone. In her place stood someone finally meeting the consequences of her own words. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, barely above a whisper. I shrugged. Wherever you were planning to go when you told everyone we were not married. Same place you planned to go when you decided my opinion did not matter, I said. Mrs. Patricia Patterson cleared her throat from across the street. Dear, there is a nice extended stay hotel about 10 minutes down the highway. Very reasonable rates for people in transition. The look on Emily's face was almost comical. Even the neighbors were not on her side. This is not over, she said, pulling out her phone. I am calling my lawyer. Good idea, I said. Tell them to contact Miller and Associates. They will handle everything. She scrolled through her contacts with shaky fingers. I turned and walked toward my front door. Behind me, her voice rose and fell as she made frantic calls. I guess she was trying the same friends who watched her performance last Saturday and were now having a hard time working up sympathy. At the door, I paused and looked back. She stood in the middle of her boxed-up life, phone pressed to her ear, looking exactly like what she claimed she wanted to be, single. Saturday morning brought the storm I expected. My phone started ringing at 7 o'clock. When I did not answer, she moved to pounding on the door. It was hard enough that I worried she might damage the new deadbolt. I opened up with a fresh cup of coffee in my hand. I was still in pajamas and looked like a man who had finally slept. Because I had. We need to talk, she announced, pushing past me into the living room. This has gone way too far. I closed the door and leaned against it. She paced back and forth like a caged animal. She had clearly spent the night at that extended stay place Mrs. Patterson recommended, and it had not improved her mood. Have a seat, I said, motioning to the couch. Do you want coffee? I do not want coffee. I want you to explain why you have lost your mind. I sat in my recliner, the one she always said made the living room look too masculine, and took a slow sip. I have not lost anything, I said. I have gained clarity. Clarity? You call destroying our marriage clarity? I did not destroy it, I said. You announced it was already destroyed. Remember? Stop acting like we are married. Those were your exact words. She stopped pacing and stared at me with a kind of desperation I had never seen on her face. I was angry, she said. People say foolish things when they are upset. You cannot make life-changing decisions based on one argument. One argument. I laughed once. Let me help your memory. 3 weeks ago, you said I was suffocating you because I asked if you wanted to grab dinner together. 2 weeks ago, you called me possessive for wondering why you were texting someone at midnight. Last month, you told your sister on speakerphone that marriage is just a piece of paper. Anyway, she snapped, cheeks flushing, you were eavesdropping. I was sitting in the same room, I said. You did not whisper. She shifted tactics and sat on the edge of the couch, leaning forward with her, let us be reasonable voice. Look, maybe I have been stressed. Maybe I said some things I should not have. We can work through this. Couples go to counseling all the time. Counseling is for two people who want to be married, I said. You have made it clear you do not. That is not true. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a message from 2 months ago. Here I said, quote, I never asked to be tied down like this. Some of us value our independence more than outdated social contracts. End quote. The color drained from her face. You saved that. I saved all of them, I said. It is amazing how clear things get when a person shows you what they think of the relationship. She stood again. Tears started to form. Please. I know I have been difficult lately, but I love you. I do not want to lose you. You do not love me, I said. You love the convenience. You love having someone to blame when life gets messy. You love a safety net while you figure out what you really want. That is not love. That is using a person. That is not fair, she said. Fair. I set my cup on the side table and looked her in the eye. Was it fair when you painted me as a controlling husband in front of our friends? Was it fair when you made me feel like wanting basic respect was wrong? Was it fair when you told a backyard full of people that our marriage meant nothing to you? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Nothing came out that did not sound ridiculous. I want to come home, she said finally, barely above a whisper. This is not your home anymore, I said. Your home is wherever single people live. The tears came hard then, but I had seen this act before. For 6 months straight, every time her usual tactics failed, the waterworks started right on schedule. You are being cruel, she sobbed. I made a mistake. I am sorry. Is that not enough? Sorry for what exactly? I asked. Sorry you got called out? Sorry there are consequences? Or sorry you truly meant it when you said you did not want to be married? I am sorry I hurt you, she said. No. You are sorry that I stopped accepting it, I said. My phone rang. Her mother. I let it go. Your family has been calling all morning. I continued. Your sister left a voicemail saying I am throwing away something beautiful. Your mother wants a calm conversation about working things out like adults. They are right, she said. We can fix this. They were not there on Saturday when you told a yard full of people that we were not really married, I said. They did not hear you laugh when others thought it was funny that a husband wanted basic consideration. They do not know about the months of you calling me needy because I expected my wife to act like she wanted to be married. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, leaving dark streaks of mascara. What do you want from me? She asked. What can I do to fix this? Nothing, I said. You cannot unsay the words. You cannot erase months of treating me like an inconvenience. You cannot pretend you did not mean what you have been saying for a long time. But the divorce papers, she said. We do not have to go through with it. We can stop this right now. I stood and walked to the window. A few of her boxes still waited on the curb for pickup. You know what is funny? I said. For months I kept thinking, if I just tried harder, if I gave you more space, if I lowered my expectations, maybe you would remember why you married me in the first place. I do remember, she said quickly. No, I said. You remember the wedding. You remember the party, the presents, and everyone telling you how beautiful you looked. You never remembered the promise. You never remembered the part about being partners. She cried harder. I was out of patience for tears that only showed up when consequences did. The papers are filed, I said, turning to face her. The locks are changed. Your belongings are packed. You received exactly what you asked for in front of everyone we know. Congratulations on your independence. She stared at me, waiting for the bluff that never came. She was finally understanding that the man who accepted months of disrespect was gone, replaced by a man who knew his worth. This is not who you are, she said. You are not this cold. You are right, I said. The man you married was not cold. You spent months teaching him that warmth was weakness. Consider this his graduation day. 3 weeks later, I sat at a corner table in Applebee's, working on a burger and a beer after a long day. Across the room, Emily held court with a few mutual friends, trying to sell a sad story. It was not landing. I had not planned to see half the barbecue crowd again, but life has a sense of humor. She has been calling everyone, said Mike Johnson, the grill master from that day, as he slid into the seat across from me with a Budweiser in hand, trying to get people on her side. Trouble is, we all heard what she said. How is that going for her? I asked. About as well as you would expect, he said. Hard to be the victim when you publicly announced your marriage did not matter. He took a drink. By the way, my wife told me to say what you did was legendary. She has been telling her friends your story whenever they complain their husbands will not stand up for themselves. I glanced at Emily's table. She was animated, talking with her hands. The 3 women with her looked more uncomfortable than sympathetic. Speaking of standing up, Mike said, how are you handling the aftermath? These things can get messy. Surprisingly clean, I said. The attorney called it one of the smoothest cases he has handled. When someone spends months documenting their own case against marriage, there is not much left to argue about. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I did not know. I opened it. A message from a woman who had been at the barbecue, someone I only met briefly. Hello. I hope this is not strange, but I have been thinking about what happened at the party. Would you like to grab coffee sometime? You seem like a man who knows what he wants. I turned the screen so Mike could see. He almost choked on his beer from laughing. Man, you are becoming a folk hero, he said. Women are talking about how refreshing it is to see a guy who does not tolerate disrespect. You are going to have more dating options than you know what to do with. He was not wrong. In the last 3 weeks, different women had sent similar messages. Apparently, refusing to be a doormat was more appealing than I realized. The divorce finalized yesterday. Clean. Simple. Exactly what she claimed she wanted. She got her freedom. I got my house, my peace of mind, and my self-respect back. The financial settlement was straightforward. She had spent months saying that marriage was just a piece of paper, and the court treated our short union like exactly that. Her attorney pushed for spousal support, but when the judge read through pages of messages where she dismissed marriage as meaningless, the judge was not impressed. What about the house? Mike Johnson asked. Mine before we said our vows, I said. Mine after. Turns out, calling marriage meaningless does not entitle you to half of what you never built. Across the restaurant, Emily finally noticed me. I lifted my beer glass in a small, mock toast. Her face flushed bright red. Cold, Mike said. Accurate, I answered. My phone rang. It was my attorney from Miller & Associates with the update I expected. The restraining order came through, he said. She cannot contact you directly anymore. Any communication must go through my office. What set that in motion? I asked. Apparently, she has been calling your workplace and showing up at locations she knows you frequent to force conversations, he said. The judge ruled it meets the standard for harassment. Perfect, I said. The legal system finally named what I had lived with for months. No respect for boundaries. When I hung up, I saw Emily's table breaking up. Her friends gathered their purses with the uncomfortable shuffle of people who had heard enough drama. Emily sat alone for a moment, staring at her phone, probably drafting another message to someone who might listen to a victim story. You know the funniest part? I said to Mike. She still does not understand what she did wrong. She thinks this is about one argument at a barbecue. That was just the last straw, he said. Exactly, I said. She spent months showing me how little she valued our relationship. The barbecue was just the first time she was honest about it in front of witnesses. Mike nodded. My wife says you are an inspiration to married men everywhere. Proof that you do not have to accept being treated like trash just because you said I do. I finished my burger and thought about how different my life felt. No more walking on eggshells around someone's mood swings. No more lectures about being too needy for wanting basic consideration. No more pretending that constant disrespect is normal. My home is quiet. My friends treat me with more respect than they have in years. My work is better now that I am not pulling the weight of a broken relationship. I sleep through the night. My phone buzzed. The woman from the barbecue had texted again. I am serious about that coffee. You seem like a man who knows his worth. Does Saturday afternoon work for you? I typed, I know a good spot downtown. Her reply came back instantly. Perfect. I like a man who makes decisions. I smiled and put my phone away. Across the room, Emily finally gathered her things. Her shoulders sagged. She would probably head to the apartment she had rented and spend the evening calling more people who had started letting her calls go to voicemail. Meanwhile, I had a coffee date with someone who appreciated confidence instead of trying to tear it down. Walking to my car, I thought about the man I was 6 months ago, desperate to keep peace, willing to be disrespected daily, convinced that tolerating bad behavior was the same as love. That man is gone. In his place stands a man who knows what he deserves and will not settle for less. She told me to stop acting like we were married. Mission accomplished. And it turns out, being single suits me just fine.